different time zone. Good afternoon. My name's Kevin Graham, and for the benefit of the tape, Paddy, can you introduce yourself?
I'm Paddy from Vital Celtic.
And John, can you introduce yourself?
I'm John, from nowhere in particular, Northern Ireland, as it happens for the most part. But I never considered organising an introduction like Miss World, Kev.
Aye, well, what do you want in the world, John? Do you want world peace? Is that? What's your perfect day? I've watched Miss Congeniality loads of times. What's your perfect day?
Yeah, that's it.
Stuff like that.
One person doesn't divorce me at the end of it, so that would be handy.
Aye. Lads, I'm not too bad. I'm having a bit of trouble with my dish. I mean, I'm not an appliance expert, Paddy.
Yep.
But what constitutes somebody to call themselves a transfer expert? What do you think? Are you a transfer expert, Paddy?
Nah, I'm not an expert in anything, mate. I think having your photo with some nice stubble with a phone to your ear constitutes you being a transfer expert, doesn't it? So I don't know what constitutes a transfer expert, because I think these guys are like anybody else. They just hear things on the grapevine and report it as fact. And there was one report this morning that I debunked on my blog about an improved offer for a South Korean player, which just wasn't true. So nothing makes you a transfer expert. I just think rumours and speculation is just part of the media's job. So, I don't know, mate. I'm definitely not an expert anyway.
John, can I call myself a transfer expert because I know a painter and decorator who kens somebody who's a football agent and he's done some work in his house, and he knows a couple of taxi drivers. There's a taxi company just across the road from me, and they tell me stuff. So can I call myself a transfer? Can I call myself a transfer expert? I mean, I can, and I've also got one of my pals who messages me all the time where he says, "I'm hearing this," and he reads it off Kerrydale Street. I mean, so could I pass that on as my own stuff and
that's what
call
happens.
myself
Chinese whispers, isn't it? Chinese whispers. One person says it goes round, and it gets added to and added to and added to, and all of a sudden you've got a viable story. So yeah, it's difficult to know who to listen to. Your man Romano, for instance, I mean, he got a couple of things right. So if you get a couple of things right, immediately you're going to be labelled as a transfer expert. That doesn't mean they always do. With the best will in the world, I mean, I've got some information here that we'll want to discuss. But the thing about any information that's passed, even if it's passed from a reliable source, even if it's passed from, if they're hearing it from someone who's in a position to know, you don't know what that someone's agenda is. Mm-hmm. They could be trying to obfuscate things. They could be trying to muddy the waters. So it could have been passed in good faith, or it could have been passed with the express purpose of trying to muddy the waters. Now, I mean, I have some information relating to a thing which we're going to go into here, but I trust where it came from. But again, you don't know. You can never verify 100% because there's only. And this particular bit of information makes sense. It makes a lot of things make sense, but that in itself is a problem because it makes sense. It makes you want to believe it. You know what I mean? And that doesn't make it true necessarily. So, there's all those things to take into account.
That's all the things to take into account. And we've got a couple of comments coming in which kind of point in the same direction. I'm thinking Paul Byrne. Wonder if it's that Paul Byrne that used to play for Celtic. Come back in and tell us if you are that Paul Byrne. Because I patted you on the head when you scored the Ibrox. If you are that Paul Byrne when you jumped into the Broomloan. Fabrizio Romano got a couple right a year or two ago, and has done hee-haw since. What I'm going to say here, Paddy, I think Fabrizio had and I'm going to start calling him Robert Ingram, what Robert Ingram says, Fabrizio Romancer. I think Romancer got a couple of things right a couple of years ago. He got the inside track on a couple of deals that came out of Italy. He hasn't done much since, but I think agents are playing him now. I think he's become such a big player in the transfer media market that there's agents now feeding him information to try and get clients' moves, and he is getting used, and he's playing the game perfectly because he does charge quite a lot for appearance on podcasts. I know
his
fact.
Podcast appearances are huge at this time of year, isn't he? He's never off anything. I listen to podcasts for a living.
You've got a nice holiday in the sun.
Oh mate, honestly, he gets a lot of
5-star.
airtime. Yeah, a lot of airtime. And you're right, he did get a couple of stories right, but he also get many Celtic stories wrong, including the summer, where he predicted that Juranović would have left in the summer, and he predicted that twice, and nothing ever happened. But I suppose you get as much, if you get a sniff of anything, then I suppose when he tweets it out, the majority of folk believe it as fact. And to be honest, it's what drives a lot of traffic for sites like mine is what Romano says, because at this time of year, trying to discern fact for fiction is so hard. It's unreal. And if you report on every single transfer story that was involving Celtic, I would be working 24 hours a day. For example, there was one that I talked about at the start today. It was reported in the Scottish press that Celtic had made an improved offer for Hume Gay or something.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah,
glad you says that, Paddy, because I was never going to make an attempt at it.
And there was Scottish media outlets connecting this story back to a South Korean media place, and I took a 10-minute time at my day and researched it. And what this actual Korean media outlet was quoting was an article from the Scottish Daily Express yesterday, when there was no such thing. Do you know? And this is what I'm talking about. So so I debunked it this morning in my blog, and what I said in my blog this morning, if I wrote that piece as being first-hand information, I would be heavily sanctioned for making up what is essentially a lie. So it's difficult, and it makes, I suppose, people like me, my job really frustrating when all you want to do is kind of get as much information about our club out there as you can. But when you're trying to discern fact from fiction, it's hard. But I think this time of year is good, but it's got its pros, but it's certainly got a lot of cons, and that is one of them. Is the con is trying to figure out what is real and what is not real.
It's true what Ange Postecoglou says, though. 10% is out there as fact. When I read a lot of the stuff in the papers, and guys like yourself, Paddy, you can only go to a certain amount of sources. So you're trusting this source, and you're gaining an opinion on this source.
Exactly.
Where the article could be completely fabricated, because the only 10% in that article, it could be true as the guy's name. The guy who wrote it name could be completely true, and a lot of them are used as PRs for like companies and agents, and it's agents trying to get the best. It's just the business side of things. I'm actually having a look at the BBC gossip column here, and what chance you got when things like this appear in the mainstream press, like appeared in the Sun, if you can call the Sun the mainstream press. Piers Morgan says Cristiano Ronaldo would have considered a move to Celtic or Rangers to further cement his Champions League legacy. That was printed in a paper this morning, John.
Aye. Well, let me tell you a joke about Piers Morgan, which will pass censorship. And it was
now you can hear, you can feel Paul John's sweat.
Stephen Fry said it at an award ceremony, and he said the murder of your mother is matricide, the murder of your father is patricide, and the murder of Piers Morgan is countryside.
Right.
I'm just saying, and it's perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with that. This countryside's a perfectly normal word. We all love spending time there at the weekend.
No. Let's get into this, because we've kind of got to a bottom line here that we say that certain parties and transfers use certain sources to get certain information out there, right?
Yeah.
We are hearing things, and we have to trust Liam in Japan, and there's another commenter from Japan comes in, Keimatsu. bid from the Reds has not been reported by the Japanese press. There is a story there, of course, but all of them are very carefully, all of them very careful to quote the Daily Record or Sky Sports. Liam says yesterday that there's nothing really there. He doesn't believe the move is on. We've got the Josip Juranović stuff as well, which his agents never really came out and says that he's wanted to leave. And Yorgos Giakoumakis has not really came out and wanted to see. There were stories that came from Greece and stuff like that.
Yeah.
One thing that puzzles me, and it was after we had a wee discussion last night, I started thinking about this. There's one thing that puzzles me. Why are these two players out there where there was other players signed during that transfer window? Could it be that Celtic are trying to move them on? And why are Celtic negotiating so early in their contracts, allegedly negotiating so early in their contracts to put them on improved deals or to move them out the door? These contracts were only signed a year ago. So is it Celtic that's doing the pushing here, John? Could it be Celtic that's doing the pushing here?
The information that we have has been sent to me is supposedly from someone who's very senior. And because what I couldn't understand, I think most of us couldn't understand, is why these transfer fees are so low, or being reported as potentially so low. Didn't make any sense. People were saying, well, there's a sell-on clause, there must be, which is fine, but who in the right mind would put a sell-on clause in for basically the same amount of money as you paid for a player? That's not what they're for. You know, that's mad. So that didn't make any sense to me. So I was asking questions about it, and I was sent information, and I'm going to repeat the information that I have. I'm not claiming this is 100% verified. I am claiming it's from someone I trust who has sources at the highest levels. But again, you need to be, careful. You don't know what the agenda is of people coming, passing on information at any given point. So the information we have is that there were 3 players signed before Dom Mackay left. So McCarthy on the 1st of August, Juranović 21st, and Giakoumakis 31st. Apparently, those contracts were not run past Michael Nicholson. They were dealt with by Dom Mackay, and Dom Mackay's naivety was basically noticed and immediately exploited by the agents who made a mug of him. And apparently there are release clauses in there for very low numbers, which are very heavily weighted against Celtic. And when that was discovered, Dermot Desmond went absolutely ballistic, and Dom Mackay was gone 12 days later. And that obviously sparked, their bankier was then gone as well. He was basically a dead man walking from that point on because he recommended him. The things that were being said around the time of Mackay going, that was, we were concerned he was out of his depth, was the kind of quote that was doing the rounds. And concerned about being out of your depth, that's certainly out of your depth. He was taking on those contracts himself. Now, he was a chief operations officer, and before that, a marketing man. He wasn't signing contracts of players, no idea what he was doing. And if he's not run those past Michael Nicholson, he's effectively, shot himself and us in the foot. So it seems to be the case that we have no leverage with either of those players. And even though they're under multi-year contracts, potentially, they can walk away if someone puts in a half-decent bid. So we have no real leverage. And so I think that's a fundamental part of why the club is moving to change that dynamic now, one way or another. Now, as I said at the start,
you've stirred a bit of interest there, John. You says at the start, you got this information, and as the host of this Wednesday Bulletin, it's up to me to pull it apart and to create discussion. And in the comments, there's already a couple of discussions as well. Red Scotland, Red's a a long-time contributor to this. I'm not sure I'm buying that. A highly successful businessman and Dom Mackay is some kind of rookie when it comes to business dealings.
It's not business dealings. I mean, see things like that. People are confused. If you know because you're good at one job doesn't make you good at another. You don't automatically become good at something from moving from one place to another. And he was obviously dismissed or resigned because it was felt that he was out of his depth. So, I'm not saying he's not a successful guy. I'm saying that he's made a mistake here, and he has been out of his depth and has been found to be out of his depth and exploited for being out of his depth. So that to me is, that to me makes perfect sense. I know, I mean, I'm in business myself. I know plenty of people who are, because I'm, as I say, reiterate, me being very good at one thing does not make me very good at another. So it's just not, that's irrelevant. He was a marketing guy and he was a chief operating officer. None of those things make him a guy who should be signing off football contracts in a sport he's never been in on his own. And if he's done that, that was a mistake, and that's why he's gone.
Uncle Nobby Steamboat comes in, and again, I had heard this before, especially about the Juranović deal. That the Juranović deal was the one that caused the split to happen quicker than what even the most optimistic person actually expected. Uncle Nobby Steamboat heard a similar rumour about Mackay. Heard he was useless and went into hiding even when he was in the stadium. Beach Boys comes in, and this is a completely different rabbit hole that we can go down. The great Mackay, surely not, and people say Law is bad news. I mean, it's quite funny that this rumour comes back as Peter Law reappears in the building, even though I don't think he's ever been away. He reappears in the building. What I would actually say, Paddy, the first thing that sticks a red flag up to me with that is, well, who signed it off then? Michael Nicholson was the company secretary. He should have signed off everything. So how did Mr. Mackay, how did these contracts go by him without the company secretary no seeing these contracts?
Your guess is as good as mine.
Chief executive, but anyway.
Well, aye. So this is his
Michael
thing.
Nicholson's a legal guy, though. He has to see everything. He has to oversee everything.
Aye, that's true. I'm always very wary of commenting on contractual matters or transfer stories, because the last time I done that on my site, I get into trouble from somebody at Celtic. So I'll kind of maybe leave that bit, because I've not got a clue. I genuinely don't have a clue about who could have signed off the contracts. There's a lot of kind of chat on social media, not obviously mostly on Twitter, with fans concerned that Lawwell has got his finger into these dealings as well. I don't know. I had an interesting discussion with someone on the platform yesterday and said that, well, if we're blaming Peter Lawwell for the slow inactivity that's happening in the transfer window as the chairman, do we then give Ian Bankier credit for when we signed people like Cameron Carter-Vickers, Jota and Kyogo? It just doesn't work that way. I don't know where people get their sums or how they add up their sums.
I'll say something here, Paddy. Is it because we're going for a better standard of player that the deals are not moving as quickly because these guys have got more options?
Well, that's another good argument, Kev, to be honest. But do you seriously think that if the club were dragging their heels over these transfers, that Ange Postecoglou would stand for it? I don't think so. I think he'd be the first one to call it out for what it is.
Yeah, I don't think Lawwell's involved at this point.
No.
I mean, I think that's a nonsense to say that, because it's, first of all, it's too early on. Secondly, he hasn't been able to, establish his power base again effectively.
When you're saying not involved, John, do you mean that he's no signing things off, which he's not in a position to sign things off?
Well,
but I really truly believe he's at the end of a phone, and something Michael Nicholson, whoever doing these deals, will actually phone him at one point and go, "We've got to this point. What do you think?"
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure they do. I'm sure he has to be, or will choose to be consulted, but he has no say in these. So ultimately, if his job is being done properly and other people are treating him as a chairman and not as de facto dictator, then he has no say. He has no power over these things, So it's really down to Michael Nicholson, and Michael Nicholson has proven himself so far to be capable of doing what Ange wants him to do. As you say, there's perfectly good reasons for why we are trying to find. If you're trying to buy guys who are popular, as you say, a better class of player, it's simple as that. They've got more options. It's going to take longer. Not every deal can be somebody we've never heard of who turns out to be an absolute diamond. Because Celtic alone have made people wise to that Asian market.
Yeah.
So Ange Postecoglou has been responsible for having guys didn't Hearts sign a boy the other day from Japan. So there's
seemingly for quite a bit of money, seemingly for
exactly.
300,000-400,000 pounds.
Yeah.
Exactly. I was about to say that they're a spotlight that Ange has put on that market alone, just as you alluded to there, John. It's going to make people look at that market more often than they would have, because how often have you seen a club like Celtic size sign players? I mean, how many is that now? Six players from the Asian market. It was unheard of. And the fact that they've been so successful now means that there are going to be not bigger teams, but teams from bigger leagues focusing their attention there. So
what you've also got to take there, Paddy, is the Scottish market is now open to Asian agents. Whereas before they never looked that way because of the success that Celtic have had with these players. I think there's going to be a Japanese player end up at Motherwell as well. I'm sure I read that as well.
They've so far they've been tremendous value, haven't they? So that's what everyone's looking for, especially in our league. You're looking for that incredible value. We can't afford to spend, 5 million on a Yeti and 5 million on whatever the goalie was. Can't even remember his name off the top of my head. Thank you. You saved that one, unlike he did. But it was, that's a lot of money. I mean, if you think of the value we've subsequently had for 10 million quid, that's night and day, and people are obviously looking at that. And I think, Michael Nicholson and Ange have been a tremendous team so far. That's why when it came to these transfers with Giakoumakis and Juranović, there's so many questions to ask. And, and again, it also means I think McCarthy's going to be impossible to punt unless he wants to go. But, the reason that information we've got, it makes sense. That doesn't mean someone is not passing it on because they want to cover up a mistake. That could have come, from all I know, from Michael Nicholson, who's trying to cover up the fact he did read those contracts and made a bollocks of them. So, you have to bear that in mind. However, the story makes sense, and I'm happy to have a reason why you would have such appallingly low sell-on clauses. And apparently, just as an additional one, by the way, he made a mess of the Ayer sell-on as well. And if that's true, we'll not be seeing anything from him if he gets moved on. That's the information that we have. Again, I don't know how many times I have to caveat it so everyone can calm down, but you can take it or leave it.
It's a devious business, this football game. There's brown envelopes everywhere. There's EBTs and like £215,000 worth of payments. Doesn't mean that there's corruption in the game. Does it not? In 2012, it's been proved that we weren't paranoid enough to keep it going. But some folks still call us like tinfoil-headed complete conspiracists.
That's just the easy way out for certain people, isn't it?
Definitely. When they don't want to report the truth.
They don't want to face the truth. And they label a certain section of football fans as conspiracy theories and paranoid wrecks.
Paddy, I'm going to focus on Giakoumakis here.
Yeah.
We signed a guy who was top goal scorer in the Eredivisie and nobody wanted him.
Yeah.
That would maybe be a reason there's such a low selling fee, because it was a big punt.
If you look at Giakoumakis' scoring record before that season, it wasn't very impressive. He wasn't hitting those kind of numbers, anywhere near those kind of numbers before that season. What is he now, 28? So that top goal scoring season would have been when he was 20, maybe just turning 27. when he hit 30 odd goals in the Eredivisie. But before that, he was lucky to hit double figures in 5 or 6 seasons before that. So that could be your answer there. That's not to say that he's not a good player. Of course he is. He's not. And it's also not to say he's not a good finisher, because we've seen it. We've seen it for ourselves. But I think I still believe that the fee that we're looking at is ridiculously low. It's still ridiculously low. It should be closer to, I don't know, maybe 7-8 for a full international. But again, to caveat that, he's going to be 29 next year. There won't be any selling value. So I mean, there's all sorts of different reasonings and reasons why we're not going to get £10 million for Giakoumakis. Maybe we just need to not lower our expectations. That's probably the wrong phrase I'm looking at. Maybe we just need to temper our expectations, what we should expect for players, because we've been that used to having players go for £15 million plus in the last 5-6 years.
Are we, John? Are we actually maybe being more misty-eyed, romantic about these two guys, who, without like downgrading them or anything like that, both could be said to be having Indian summers? They're great bloomers. They've had a kind of mundane career up until this point. They're getting to the 28, 29 point. They're going, we've got one big move left.
Yeah.
We want to double our money because we've got one big move left, because see, for the last 10 years, I've done nothing with my career. So I need to make hay while the sun is actually shining, to use that cliche.
Clubs are looking for that sort of thing as well. That's the kind of thing we look for. Mm-hmm. We look for guys who are coming into form, who maybe, haven't done anything for a long time. That can be a sign, you'll get decent value out of that deal. But for a guy who's been top scorer and joint top scorer in 2 different leagues in 2 years, I think everybody thinks that he's worth more than essentially what we paid for him, which, when you include the sell-on fee, it's reportedly about 10%. If you include that, effectively, we're breaking even if some of those numbers are to be believed. So I think we all feel, regardless of your assessment of Giakoumakis, I think we all feel that he's worth more than that. Now, I'm not saying he's a 10, 12, 15 million pound player at all, but I think, you could comfortably should be doubling at least what you got for him. Juranović is another one. I was never, his entire value that people were putting on him, like 15, 20 million that other people were putting on him, was purely based on the World Cup. Because we've said before on here, it certainly wasn't based on how he played for us. Because, the season he's had, if anything, he's had, from my point of view, a worse season than previous. Because essentially, with the European games in particular, now he was up against some very good players in the European games, and our system, it doesn't help, because obviously it sort of hangs you out to dry as a fullback to a certain degree, but he certainly didn't cover himself in glory. So I wasn't expecting that we would get anywhere near that. But what you are hoping for, it's what you're hoping for really, is that someone takes one of those mad World Cup punts, as we've seen many times in the past. Guys has a good World Cup.
As the South Korean boy is sitting waiting on, John. As the South Korean boy is sitting waiting on. That's what he's waiting on.
Well, I mean, that's it. But I mean, we could be waiting a long time. Cynical. It could be waiting a long time for that fella, because I think he's gone. He was on the cover of Vogue, for God's sake. So I think he's gone all misty-eyed. Thinks he's a big name now.
So Madonna's been on the cover of Vogue as well, and I wouldn't have playing up front for us.
I'll tell you what. It wouldn't have helped if he'd watched that game against Kilmarnock at the weekend.
No.
And thought about he was going to play in sunnier climes and have all the glamour of a top football pro, and then he watches that game and he's just thinking, what, I will never set foot in that country. Which you couldn't really blame him for. It was absolutely hellish. I mean, I don't know who we're waiting for. There's obviously a lot of moving parts here. I just couldn't understand. The only bit of I couldn't understand was why would they be selling guys for what appears to be well below market value. There had to be a reason for that. So the explanation I have might not be the correct reason, but it's reason enough for me to go, right, okay, well, at least that makes sense, so we'll see how it develops, but it is going to be very interesting. The numbers. Do you think they'll be undisclosed, Kev? You think it'll all be undisclosed?
If both of them leave, they're going to end up being undisclosed.
Yeah.
I think there's enough to say that it makes sense what you've been told, but then there's also another side of it that doesn't make sense, that I can't believe that Celtic would, the way that Celtic have done business with Michael Nicholson there as a company secretary, would let that type of thing slip through the net. I just can't believe that. It's no like some.
Yeah, but Kev, a man lost his job over the back of it, like.
And it's like a different.
Mate, put 50 pence in your broadband meter. Oh, there
you
go.
There you
came back.
No, you stalled out there for a second.
Don Mackay's attacked us. Don Mackay has attacked the bulletin, and so's Ian Bankier, and we need to watch what we're saying. I think there's enough to poo-poo it, but also as well, you can weigh up all these wild accusations now, and you can actually go, well, who is actually pushing to get these players at the door? Mm-hmm. When you actually look back at it, Paddy, you're going, who's actually pushing to get these players at the door? Where's the speculation coming from? And it's very, very murky where the speculation is actually coming from to get these guys at the door.
Well, if what John's told us, it's a bit of both, isn't it? It'll be agents and possibly maybe the club as well to try and get as much as we can. What was interesting to note was it one of the commenters that said that there's been nothing in the Japanese media about Giakoumakis. My experience with the Japanese media is they don't tend to release anything unless it's a done deal, so it doesn't mean that he's maybe not going there. The Japanese media just don't deal in speculation until things are signed, sealed and delivered. So that move could happen if it's there. I mean, there's a lot of smoke, but there's not a lot of fire. But I think on you go, John.
No, it's just we've got Liam obviously who lives in Japan, and he said right from the get-go that would be a bizarre move, because I obviously the idea is here, if Giakoumakis is going, it's because he's looking for a payday. We can't really force him out the door, so unless he wants to go, he's looking for a payday, and he's not going to get a payday in Japan. He may get a few grand a week more than he's currently got, but that's it. He's not going to be doubling and trebling his wages. They don't have that sort of money, and that club doesn't have that sort of money. And it's, in terms of going, and being first choice and playing every week in Japan for I think they're a mid-table team. Okay, that seems like an odd choice.
At least he'll play.
He'll play, but there's plenty of places he could go and play. I'm sure he could get, an EPL team, or the first division team, or plenty of places he could go and get tons of money.
The way he plays, he's suited to the Championship, isn't he? He's suited
he is, right?
And he'll certainly get far. He'll probably treble his wages if he made a club in the Championship, the kind of money to swim about down there as well. But when you look at the clubs that are reportedly being linked to him in the kind of leagues that are being linked to him, if he does decide to go there, you're not going to get a payday in the MLS either for Atlanta, I wouldn't imagine. So if he goes there, if he goes to Urawa Reds, but I'm sure I read somewhere Urawa Reds is one of the richest clubs in Japan. But I don't even know. I don't know how you could base that. I don't know how you would compare that, if you understand what I mean. So it could be the richest club, but they might not have a potty thing in. Do you know what I mean? There's swings and roundabouts in that. But if he does decide to go to one of the clubs, to me that tells me it wasn't always about the money. It's about getting game time, because I'm pretty sure he'd be fed up playing second fiddle to Kyogo. What were you meant to do? Kyogo's had a great season so far. So what we're going to do? Drop Kyogo to accommodate a player who wants more game time? It's just not going to happen.
Well, I'm just trying to impose his style. Giakoumakis doesn't play that style. Giakoumakis is the option. So again, a lot of it, and I've had a lot of comments about people that think Giakoumakis is great, people that think he's terrible, all the usual stuff, the division of opinion. But primarily why he's not getting game time is because he doesn't fit the style necessarily. And he's very good at certain things and not good at others. He's basically a man down outside the box, so I don't know. He's got, he couldn't trap a bag of cement, as they say, but he's deadly inside the box. So there is that. But is he deadly enough? So he could be a lot better if he got more time, but he's not going to get the time. It doesn't suit the style, and Kyogo is a better finisher for the most part. So
I might be wrong here, John, and I might be wrong here, John. I'm more than likely to be wrong because I'm wrong about most things. But I see more development opportunity in Kyogo than I see in Giakoumakis. And if somebody was said that you've got to sell one of your strikers this January, what one is it going to be? It would be Giakoumakis for me all the time, because even though the big fella's been great for us, I have a look at him and I didn't see any improvement there. You mentioned a couple of things, like can't trap a bag of cement, blah, blah, blah. I can't see any improvement there. But I think Kyogo's got a better football intelligence where he would be able to improve. He sometimes sees runs that Giakoumakis will make. I think there's better strikers than Giakoumakis out there at the same type of striker than Giakoumakis is out there. And if Giakoumakis is wanting to be one of the top earners at the club, which I don't care if he wants to be one of the top earners of the clubs. No, I wouldn't give him that money to be one of the top earners in the club, because I think there's far better out there than him. And I would want a top earner at the club to actually be able to score goals at the top level in Europe. And we've had many guys who have scored goals domestically.
Yeah, there's a couple of things there, Kev. First of all, as long as he's being replaced, I don't think particularly anyone's got a big issue with letting him go as long as he's being replaced. But the only danger is, of course, that you are letting him go mid-season, which seems a strange move, given the fact that he's a known quantity and whoever you're bringing in is an unknown quantity. So unless he's, clearly better, you're banking on finishing the season with Kyogo and potentially one guy that we just don't even know who he is yet or what standard he is. And I think, we actually need three strikers, not one. I mean, that's
I was about to say that, John, as well. We needed a striker for a long time, even with Giakoumakis.
Absolutely. So, I don't have a particular problem with letting him go. I'm not trying to fight his corner and say, he's invaluable. He's not. He's a worthy member of the squad. He's done his job. There are, as you say, very likely better out there, but the timing of it is odd, and it makes me worry, because Kyogo went down. Kyogo's hamstrings are, given the way he plays, his hamstrings are a risk permanently. So, and that's a long industry, long injury to recover from. You're potentially 3 to 6 months with a hamstring. So it is a concern from that point of view, and which was why I was getting more concerned about not getting the right money for him, because if we are letting him go, it costs money to guarantee goals, and what we're reportedly selling him from, we would need Ange to pull yet another rabbit out the hat to replace, regularly replace those goals. For the same amount of dough. So, there's a lot of questions to be answered around this.
I look at things very simply, John, and if we're letting them go, we've got to bring in better. That's it. And even it doesn't matter if we were letting him go in this window or he was going in the summer. We've got to bring in better, and that's the way that always.
Do you not think we need to bring in better than Kyogo, though? For us to get infinitely better, no, got to bring in better than what we currently have, which includes Kyogo. And I would say that about any player in the team. I would say that about Jota. I'd say it about Haksabanovic. I'd say it about Cameron Carter-Vickers. If we're bringing somebody in, it's got to be somebody that's going to feasibly challenge for that position.
Like Kevin Nisbet, you mean?
Oh, don't even get me started.
No, I didn't even go there. I'm not here to have a go at Kevin Nisbet. I'm not going to go on my Kevin Nisbet thing with Pat McGuire. Why am I getting nerves to throw things at the telly? Pat, go and come in and tell us why you're getting nerves to throw things at the telly. And we'll answer it. We will answer it, because we're the type of guys. Yeah. Paul Andrew Martin. It was said on another Celtic pod yesterday, Giakoumakis is currently on 12k and wants £24 a week. Well, 20, I think he means 24K.
Now,
That deal would have been signed weeks ago if that was the case. Now, I don't know how they would know. Possibly Ange thinks he can do better on those terms. Paddy, based solely on the numbers, and we'll come to John after this. Paddy, based solely on the numbers, I would not give Georgios Giakoumakis £24,000 a week.
No, because he's not going to dislodge Kyogo. That's what I mean. So if we're going to pay somebody 24 grand a week, he's got to have the ability to be able to challenge Kyogo properly for that top up up top, that place up top, and he's not going to do that. It's been evident for the last 18 months he's not going to do that. When you think of it, when he first joined the club, it took him 4 or 5 months to get fit to play. Never mind challenge Kyogo. So I wouldn't be paying him 24 grand a week. I would be loath to lose him because, like I said earlier, I felt we need another striker anyway. So that means we now need 2 strikers. But for that kind of money, you're wanting somebody that's going to contribute more than what he has done already.
Well, for that kind of money, and if those figures are accurate, and those figures, where they got them from was, I shared a list of those figures on Twitter. There's been a couple of lists doing the rounds. But I know for a fact those lists are not accurate because people who do know what guys were getting paid challenged a couple of things. One of them had Jota on early 20s, and apparently Jota is the highest paid player at the club. And
there's also a site that's widely available that bloggers use to kind of write stories on.
But I researched, I looked into the people that were producing that list, and I went into their site to see where they got it from. And basically, they're just collating from public information. So it's purely guesswork. Some of it might be relatively accurate guesswork, but it is guesswork. You saw things like Goldson being top of that list, but I was told that that's because they're taking their signing on fees as a monthly amount, rather than taking it up front. So there is
monthly on fees on tick as well. Is that what you're saying?
That's basically it. That's basically it. Yeah, and he'd be looking for a double dunk now. He's sent as a goalie. So the there's an issue with there is obviously an issue with how accurate that information is, but as Paddy said, the principle is the same. It doesn't matter how accurate the information is. You're not paying them starters money because 24 grand. Their top men are on 24 grand. There's a couple of boys in their early 30s. Their top boys are on that sort of money. So we are not paying it to a guy who's second
Cameron
string.
Carter Vickers 24 grand.
Exactly.
Aye.
So
that's it. You're giving McGregor 24 grand. You're giving Cameron Carter Vickers 24 grand.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be even giving Kyogo £24,000, and I wouldn't even be giving Giakoumakis is nowhere near 24 grand.
That's
£24,000 worth of each striker.
He's contributed more to the team than Giakoumakis. So
yeah.
There you go.
So the principle remains the same. Doesn't matter what the amounts are. You don't pay starters money to second string players. So if he wants that sort of money, he needs to earn it or he needs to move. And if he's going to move, if he can get that money elsewhere, fair play to him. But that doesn't concern me. What concerns me is what money are we getting for him? Yeah. That's the only thing that concerns me, because what I'm interested in is how we're replacing him.
Kaiser comes in. We're giving £24,000 to McCarthy, but he's contributing as much as
what you were saying then, John, about the contract earlier on.
Exactly.
Your source exactly.
It's exactly right. That's why those ones, they all made sense, because McCarthy's was a shocking deal to start off with. Before we even knew this, McCarthy's was a shocking deal. The length of contract he got, the wages he was reportedly on, was shocking right from the get-go. So that's going to be a fundamental problem, because I don't think, we literally can't force him out the door. Unless you're sending him to play with a B team. And I'm not even sure you're allowed to do that sort of thing anymore. No, to try and punish players. I just don't think that's possible. So, he can sit there and play for the next couple of years, play reserve team football, rake in a fortune. And if he doesn't care about playing first team, then makes no difference. It's our mistake. It's our mistake. It's the club's mistake. So it's.
Plunge McNugget, Giakoumakis is on 12 grand. Celtic offered him 15. He turned it down. I even think 15's too much. I do. I do. I really do. We've had plenty of guys that have scored goals domestically, and unfortunately for Giakoumakis, I like him. He has embraced the club a bit and understand his mess. I understand that he has to move on because of his age and he's a late bloomer and stuff like that. I really do understand it, but I do not see any progression in him whatsoever to take us where I want to go as a Celtic supporter. And that's just me, though. That's just me. I'm not going to deny anybody who would give him the £15,000 because we'll see different things. I mean, as I've said plenty of times on this podcast, I called him an utter coup at half-time during the first time I saw him against Livingston. I did. I went, he looks like a guy that's never seen a football in his life.
He did look a lot like that, though. That's and
I was putting him up there with Bio after that first 45 minutes. I mean, that's football. I love what he's done with us, but I'm not going to Henrik Larsson burst into a flood of tears when he walks out the door. I'm going to go, hi, Will, you always will be welcome back, big man, because you were part of Angie's first double winning side. But I'm not going to actually shed any tears that you're walking.
But I mean, you look. I mean, it's been demonstrated already. You know, I mean, Johnson looks an able replacement already for Juranović. I'm quite happy with Johnson. There are a couple of things defensively that I saw that I'm not particularly keen on, but again, he has much more potential to improve than Juranović does. And you know, for me, I think he'll start tonight, and I think he's got that sort of solidity. And you know, he wasn't wild money, so you can get guys out there. You know, we are. The problem is, you know, that we have for many years been shopping in the bargain basement, but without the person who knew where all the best deals were. Yeah. And that's essentially what Ange is. I mean, we're still in the bargain basement, but we've got a guy, you know, and maybe even a couple of guys, if Young Lowell's doing his job, who know what value looks like, who know how we can benefit most from that. We're not just signing random boys for $2.5 million, taking a punt on them, and then it turns out like they've never seen a football before. So, you know, we're still in the same market, but we've got better tour guides, basically. You know, and hopefully that continues. But there's no way. I mean, as I say, I'm not bothered about Juranović leaving. I'm not particularly bothered about Gigi leaving. What I'm bothered about is how much money we get in. That's the only thing that concerned me. That's what was annoying me, and I couldn't understand why we were potentially looking so low. And I'm not a fantasist about, you know, I think we should be looking stupid money for them because it's unlikely we're going to get it. I don't think either of them warrant it. But you want market value, though. You want market value, and I don't think certainly what was being with Gigi anyway. I don't think that was market value. What was being quoted. I don't believe that story. I just don't believe the story about Japan. I don't think it's a real story. You know,
the problem we've got is we'll never get market value for any player that leaves our club simply because we play in Scotland. It's never going to happen. You look at the money we got for Kieran Tierney, £25 million. It's just at the time it was a joke, a transfer fee. If we were sitting in the Premier League and somebody's trying to buy Kieran Tierney, what would the market value be then? But we'll never get it, regardless.
What about Mudryk? Right. I mean, I know Mudryk's an exception. I know Mudryk's an exception. He's clearly a world-class player, but he's still playing in Ukraine. You know, I mean, he's still playing for Shakhtar.
But he's also a different kind of player, though, and you always get more money for these attacking kind of midfielders, strikers, and that kind of thing. So there's that as well. But
are you trying to say, Paddy, that Mudryk's a better player than Giakoumakis?
Maybe, I don't know. I'll put that out to the viewers. See what they think.
I'm going to be cynical here. I reckon there's a bit of sports washing going on with Chelsea signing Mudryk, where some of the money is going to end up. That's
that's a confusing one, though. For a Ukrainian player to join that club, you know, which is still, you know, given effectively who owned that club and who almost certainly still controls it in the background somewhere. That was a strange one, and to go at the last minute.
Apparently,
I mean, the difference in the deal was Arsenal were only going to give them, I think, 50 million. Was it Arsenal or Spurs? We're only going to give them. We're only going to give them 50 million up front, but Chelsea gave them 62, and that rises up to 88. Well, add-ons or whatever it is. So it's a very, very big difference.
Let's wrap up the transfers. Beach Boys comes in. Wolves have just signed a Spanish internationalist from PSG for £4 million. Southampton signed a Croatian international for £4 million. Why are all our players all of a sudden £10 million players? Interesting point. There seems to be value. Out there. IH Decorating comes in and says quite rightly, Kevin, painters know everything about transfers. They can hang wallpaper and their transfer experts as well.
Surely taxi drivers are the source of all knowledge.
Airport taxi drivers, they're the ones that need to go. We need to try and grab them.
Carol names should start a Gareth Bale to Celtic rumour and see how far it goes as an experiment. Well, I'll start it. The painter and decorator guy that I know, he'll be listening to this, WhatsApped me last night, and he was in Tenerife last week, and he was sharing the same hotel as Tyson Fury. And Tyson Fury told him that Gareth Bale is going to go to Celtic because he's looking for hooses in East Kilbride. There you go. That's what Tyson Fury told my painter and decorating mate in Tenerife last week.
That's nailed on, Kev.
Beach Boys has got the headlines of more on the paper. Can't wait for the exclusive in the Sun and Daily Record tomorrow. Mackay messed up contracts.
Do you know what? It wouldn't surprise me. Wouldn't surprise me. Again,
there's been many things that I've written in my blog that's been picked up by people, things like the Daily Record and the Sun, that is really frustrating. But that does happen, believe it or not.
But at least we caveat it. At least we say, believe it or don't believe it. At least we explain where it come from and why it might not be true. So you can choose to believe it or not. But you will be nobody's saying that. What's that?
You'll be labelled as a Celtic hater for the comments earlier.
Aye, definitely. Pat Maguire, who asked earlier on why he was getting urged to throw things at the telly.
Yep.
He goes, what's Bully's special prize today, lads? It's a target on my top. I've got it now. I have got it now. And Paul Byrne, who admitted that he isn't that Paul Byrne, says he'll come out of retirement for 15 grand a week. Paddy, we've got a game tonight. How do you think this game's going to go?
Well, I'm going tonight, and I'm going with my family for the first time. I've took my wife and my two kids to a game ever. I've been separately with them, but never as a whole family, so I'm looking forward to it. And we're up in the Godswell. My kids love it, so I'm looking forward to taking the family there. It should hopefully be 3 points in the bag. Clean bill of health for all the squad. I don't think there's any, apart from maybe Greg Taylor. Or was he training early? I can't remember. But if you've listened to Ange Postecoglou yesterday, we've got a full team to pick from. It should hopefully be an easy 3 points. But do I want to cuss it and say 3 points? Am I being arrogant here? I don't know. But yeah, I can't see anything on the Celtic win tonight. It's got to be, isn't it?
Well, their track record, they're a difficult team to beat, but it's mainly at home. So, their track record against, they beat us, they drew with Rangers at their ground. Away from home, Rangers beat them 4-0. But in their last 4 games, they've had 1 win and 3 draws, 3 low-scoring draws. So they are a difficult team to beat. And what I think might add a bit of complexity to it, there was hints that Ange was giving that he might make a lot of changes to this team tonight. So, because of the conditions and how tough that game was at the weekend, I think he wants to give a load of boys a rest. So I think we could be looking 4 or 5 changes, which is going to complicate things. So, potentially you could be looking at Abada, Turnbull, Giakoumakis, O'Reilly, Johnson, all of them coming in. Even Forrest, Haksabanovic if he's fit. There's any number of changes they could make there. And I think that is the only thing that's likely to upset the apple cart, really. At our ground, as long as the conditions aren't horrific like they were the other day, which evens the playing field somewhat. At our ground, I think, we should be fit to beat them, fairly comfortably. But I think it's going to be a very different team. Now, Ange could completely embarrass you, as he always does, and just play the same team.
I don't think it's going to be an extremely different side because we've got Morton at the weekend. I've got a funny feeling there'll be the usual changes up front and the wings, which he seems to do anyway, which is going to be harsh on Maeda because Maeda's been absolutely stunning since he's came back for the World Cup. But I want to see... I think Abada's been hard done by. I think all of them out of the front three, all the forwards that we've got, Paddy, I think Abada's been hard done by. I don't think he's deserved the sort of dropping, and I do put that in air quotes for those listening on the podcast later on. But I think he has been harshly treated. Jota, I completely understand. Abada, I didn't quite get, Paddy.
Problem with Abada, he's up against Maeda and Haksabanović, isn't it? If you swap Jota on the wings to accommodate whoever it is that's going to get picked, so he's up against two really good wingers. But I agree. I think Abada's a smashing player, and he's proved it time again with his goals, his assists, the way he kind of goes in at that back post and tends to find himself in the right place at the right time. He might get a run out tonight. On you go, John.
The issue is though that Abada hasn't been dropped for those guys. Abada's been dropped for James Forrest. So it's Forrest that's coming in at his expense, and no harm to Abada. But if James Forrest is coming in front of you, the manager obviously sees something there. And
it's something that I haven't seen, John. It's something that I haven't seen.
Well, when it gets down to those sort of technicalities, I'm not, when it's as tight as that, because I don't think, Abada's a very good player, but James Forrest offers something different, and so I'm not going to second guess the manager on that one because it's not blindingly obvious that Abada should be starting. As you say, you could say he's been hard done by, or you could say that James Forrest has just been very good in terms of his contribution, his overall contribution to the team, and maybe that's what Ange is looking at. But, he certainly, Abada's been a very valuable player, so if Forrest is getting in front of him, there's a good reason for it, is what I think. I really would love to see, Haksabanović back, because I think he's going to be to me, he's first choice all day long. So love to see him back and get him bedded into the team. And I think if you had the likes of, Haksabanović, Jota and Maeda on this forum, and what sensational form it is. I've not had the chance to really talk about Maeda, but that's why it's so difficult when you're in giving opinions on players in a public forum. It's so difficult to strike the correct balance, and why we never jump too hard one way or the other, because, it's all right for people in the comments to say, oh, your man's crap or your man's brilliant, but they might turn out to be neither of those things, further down the line. And Maeda looks like a different man, not just putting goals away, but sensational goals, making sensational finish for a guy that could barely scrap a ball 6 yards over a line at one point. He's now hammering
all sorts of criticism, wasn't he?
Jesus, yeah. He was scraping things home, and he looked. It was messy, and it wasn't accurate. And now, absolutely bursting through. He's absolutely on fire. Wonderful to see. Yeah. Absolutely wonderful to see. And that's exactly. There's a guy. If he carries on like that, God knows how much he would be worth. Talking about transfers, because the rest of his game is also. The rest of his game was always there. The work he puts in is just, I've never seen anyone work that hard in my life. I don't think anyone has. It's just sensational. And if you add on finishes like that, and he makes that a regular feature of his game, what a player we've got there.
The front three is going to be interesting, Paddy. I can't see any changes in the midfield purely because we've got... This period to me seems like the period that we used to have in December before that strange World Cup. where the games come thick and fast. And I think the coaching staff will be having a look at this and going, right, we've got a game at the weekend. I can't see guys like O'Reilly and Turnbull coming in the night, but I can see them coming in at the weekend. And the only changes I can actually see tonight, for me anyway, I think Alistair Johnson will probably play. I don't think Juranović will actually play, just with what Ange says in his press conference yesterday. And I'm going to agree with. Did I hang with that? Somebody in the comments says James Forrest done the presser, so that means that he's going to start. Could have a good shout there. I can see Forrest starting. I can see Alistair Johnson starting, but I can't see really too many more changes. Mainly because we've got the game we've got that game at the weekend. Then the following week we've got Livingston. And we have got Livingston, or is it Dundee, right? Livingston in the midweek. I can't see them being too many changes tonight, Paddy. Even though he did say that he was going to make changes at the. But then again, he could change the two fullbacks. He could change the whole midfield. Trying to guess Postecoglou is trying to guess VAR in Scotland.
You could just throw a wee left field one in there, couldn't you? But no, I agree. I don't think there'll be much changes, especially in the middle of the park. I think.
Oh, big one. Sorry, Paddy. Big one.
Yes.
What about Awata? What about him coming off the bench tonight? Because he's been training.
Yeah, he has been, but I don't know. He might even get a start. You never know. Might give Callum McGregor a rest and he could start Awata. You never know. That would be
I'm hoping for the night for me. I'm hoping Haksabanovic gets some minutes because I'm like John. I like watching Haksabanovic, and I'm looking forward to going. I've already got the Marks and Spencer's tights looked to go underneath my jeans and my thermal top and that on. Aye, only fans $9.99 a month.
Yeah.
As I keep on saying, just look me up. I'm called Marilyn Lim on OnlyFans. So just look
do you
me
like
up.
robbery? That is. Are you paying people $9.99? You handing that out to subscribers?
By the way, lads, are Gareth Bale rumours picking up? Before we finish off, are Gareth Bale rumours actually picking up traction already?
Excellent.
Red Scotland. This doesn't surprise me. Red says he's a taxi driver. That doesn't surprise me. That's Red Scotland's.
That's why he's also on my blog.
Aye, that doesn't surprise me. Just with some of the things Red comments about that he's a taxi driver. It doesn't surprise me whatsoever. Stevie boy, Joe Ledley told Bale that it would be daft not to sign for the Ticks as they were bigger in Real. I also heard that Joe Ledley gave Gareth Bale a Lenny the Wolftone CDs that he had. I heard that as well. The Urban Coolshay, I'm hearing Bale going to the game tonight. That's it. I'm sure the cameras will be trained on the director's box there. And Paul Andrew Martin, seen Bale as more of a Newton Mearns guy. He's plenty of golf courses. So if you're in Newton Mearns, have a look for a Black-toot Range Rover driving about looking at houses for rent. Lads, Bears Den, aye. Yeah. Lads, it's been great Wednesday. Always love it. If you're going to the game tonight, enjoy. There's going to be the pre-match stuff and on that. Hit a like for us. Do what you need to do and just remember, don't be bams to each other. See